big promotion's being announced today, and I think I know who's going to get it.
The new president, big surprise, Ken Daly.
What? And I am engaged to your daughter.
Daly here is engaged to my favorite daughter.
What kind of a man has a favorite daughter? And if you do have a favorite, then you should label them favorite and not favorite. I swear I will kill you. Ah!
So that's the woman that found the body?
No, sir, that's a man.
Really?
That's him!
Nelson Hibbert is a wanted man.
How far will $36 get me?
You're there.
Just need your name for records?
My name is Dr. Helen Harris.
No, that's my name.
Smart. Super smart.
The guy I saw stuck his head in the water machine.
Or is he?
Yeah, the police think he killed Randall Nagel.
Let's focus all our energies on catching this killer.
No, they think I killed Randall Nagel.
No, they don't.
Dave Foley.
I must live in hiding, never able to rest, never a moment's peace, starting at every noise. What's that, I'll say?
David Anthony Higgins.
Tell the snipers to get in position.
I can hear you!
Sorry.
Jennifer Tilly.
Did I have one of my spells again?
I'm guessing you did.
And Colm Feore.
He's getting in the way. I'm gonna get rid of him.
In the story of a man on the run. The wrong guy.
This doesn't look anything like me.
No, it doesn't.
It's me.
Hello and welcome back to Almost Cult Classics, the podcast. My name is Joe Ramone, and I'm joined by my friend and co-host Ryan Lancello.
Howdy, folks.
Talking about 1997's The Wrong Guy, starring Dave Foley, directed by David Steinberg. Canadian film, which I think this is our first pure Canadian production we've done on the show, maybe?
As far as I know, yeah.
Yeah, this was not released theatrically in the United States. It was direct-to-video in the U.S. Shot in Canada, though most of it takes place in Cleveland. A lot of Toronto stuff, I believe, in it. Obviously, a lot of the cast and the director, they're Canadian, so I had never seen it. I forget how I stumbled upon it. I think it was just on sale on Kino's website. They put out a DVD of it with a great commentary. I'll give them a shout-out. It's got a commentary with Dave Foley, David Steinberg.
Did you listen to it?
I did, yeah.
How is it?
Really good. It's again, we talk about some of these movies like, oh, I wish they had this special edition DVD, Blu-ray, and this one did, and it was fun.
So, obviously after this on Sidetracks, on our Patreon show, we're going to talk about the Kids in the Hall movie Brain Candy. I was wondering if in that commentary, because they kind of were made, Brain Candy was made in 96, Wrong Guy was made in 97. Did Dave Foley talk about at all what he was dealing with or going through at the time?
Not personally. The only thing that they really talked about was how the idea stemmed from a sketch that he just sat with for a while. But yeah, like you said, I know there was some, like, he's not involved in Brain Candy. Like,
this is, I had such a dilemma when I watched Brain Candy. I was like, shit, I'm like, we should be doing this on the main show and not the Patreon show, because it is an almost cult classic. I loved it, but we'll get into that later. I don't want to spoil it, but Wrong Guy's good too. I mean, they're both good movies that talk about the almost cult classics in the sense. But yeah, Brain Candy kind of broke up Kids in the Hall almost.
They got in some like disputes behind the scene about the script, it seemed like, and
Dave Foley was on news radio at the time,
and I guess he was like contractually obligated to be in the movie, but
correct.
It stuck out to me during the credits when he was not included on the writers.
I was thinking to myself, I'm like, oh, did he like do a fake name as a joke or something? And like, no, Norm Hiscock is the other writer. He was a writer on Kids in the Hall and stuff.
Yeah, and he doesn't have that, like, the other cast obviously like he has a couple decent sized roles, but not as much as Kevin McDonald and the other guys. Dave Foley, I didn't really know much about as a kid. I think my first introduction to him was Blast from the Past. Remember that movie?
I never saw that. He was in that?
Yeah, he plays whatever the girl that Brendan Fraser falls in love with.
It was Alicia Silverstone, right?
Is that right?
Yeah.
He plays her, I believe, gay roommate. He's and that was my first introduction to him. And then, yeah, he's just one of those guys you see pop up in things. And he obviously wrote this film. He was going to direct it, but he had other obligations, I think, with
he was on news radio at the time,
which I haven't seen. Have you ever seen News Radio?
Dude, I've heard nothing but good things. Hell of a cast, right? I mean, that's like an all-timer cast, and I've seen a few episodes. I remember really liking it. If anything, it's a show I'd like to revisit, but I haven't seen a ton of it. I can't speak to it. I've seen is great, and obviously I worship Phil Hartman.
It was on Amazon for like $15, the complete series. So I was like, oh, great, that's a steal. I'll pick it up, and I guess now what they're doing, I think it's just like Mill Creek. They packaged like DVD full sets in like paper sleeves. Like it's not even like it's. I threw it out, or I would show you. I saved the discs, but I threw out the packaging because it was like literal like paper,
unbelievable,
masquerading as a. Remember when like DVD boxes were like different folds you had to open, and then there was
remember getting like the paper slips in some of them. There's shittier movies or whatever.
But I guess that's how they're doing them. Like for some of these older series that have like maybe like 6 or 7 seasons, they're just papering it. But you know, I miss having you would have those books you can go through and be like, oh, this episode was aired this date. Like there was a lot of information. But
one of my favorite things about, and I'm no gamer, when I would get a video game as a kid, I'd love the book. You got a little book with it. Those days are done. There was a real. I'll give a shout out because you can look it up on YouTube. A guy did a great video about when The Simpsons, for like their season 4 DVD, they put out a case that was Homer's head. Yeah.
So you had just like your standard matching, and for like people that like had displayed them, it was a nightmare. That all of a sudden this plastic ugly
back in my collecting days, I was I had no money, younger, but I was getting the Simpsons things because that was my Bible at one point was The Simpsons. No longer the case. Anywho, I stopped buying them, I think, at around a certain point. So I was like, I can't display these fuckers correctly. Yeah. So I was like, I'm a big display guy. Not anymore. I'm Spartan. But Joe's taking up the mantle for me. I buy shit for him, and he keeps it in his movie palace.
I have the Almost Cult Classics movie library at this point.
Dude, I swear to God, you listeners would be kids in candy stores in Joe's apartment. It's quite glorious.
So yeah, The Wrong Guy, it was a DVD I picked up on a sale. I think we were trying to figure out what to do next, and I had just suggested it. I had never seen. I really didn't know anything about it.
Same here.
The poster.
Nothing.
But looking at the poster, you're like, oh, this is going to be like a guy gets wrongly accused of murder, goes on the run type movie. And up until a certain point it is, but when that twist happens, I thought that was such a great...
What's the twist?
That everyone knows he's innocent.
I thought that was so funny. It happens, I'd say, maybe 15, 20 minutes in the movie.
Yeah.
It is. It's setting you up to think, like, he's going to be on the run, the wrongly accused guy. And our favorite, we are in agreement, I don't think we need to talk about this, our favorite character from the movie, Detective Arlen. He's played by David Anthony Higgins.
Yeah, I believe he's credited as David Higgins in this. He's also a writer on the movie.
Yeah, so him, Dave Foley, and Jay Kogan, who was a writer on The Simpsons. I think he wrote on Kids in the Hall. I can't quite remember.
Yeah, but, they're on the commentary on the DVD, which again I'll recommend.
But yeah, David Higgins is so funny in this movie, and I was watching it. I'm like, where do I know this guy from? And did you find it weird when I watched probably the entirety of Malcolm in the Middle when it was on TV? Great show. He was hilarious on that.
Yeah, Craig.
I don't really remember Malcolm in the Middle that much.
I stopped watching when they had the other baby.
I think that's when I checked out.
And but I will say there are a couple...
I don't even remember that, dude.
Yeah, really?
Yeah, I probably... Oh, God. That's the thing. I don't remember a ton of the plot. I remember loving it.
I loved it.
It was a really good show.
But yeah, he played... David Higgins played Lois's coworker, Craig.
Craig, yes.
Craig Feldspar, I believe, who was like a big nerdy guy who was like infatuated with Lois secretly. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple of episodes that... One, I forget how it happens. He gets injured. Craig is in a wheelchair and has a little capuchin monkey taking care of him. Do you remember that one?
Maybe.
And the monkey,
hate capuchins. Did I say that last episode with Cutthroat Island?
Yeah. But the fucking monkey is trying to kill him, and it's just so ridiculous. And like Hal ends up saving the day, and it's just this monkey in a diaper who's like, it's really funny. And then I remember there's one where Lois... something happens. Someone cuts her off and no one thinks she's in the right, so they look at the security camera. And Hal's going through all the tapes that Craig has from the parking lot, and he just picks up one and goes, "Short skirt, windy day." And he's like, oh, yes, that's a code name for something. But yeah, really funny actor.
He's hysterically funny in this movie.
And he's not like the person you would typically expect to have this role.
Right.
But he is, and we'll get to it. The whole joke with his character is that he's just incompetent, and he's on the trail of this killer, but doing everything wrong.
But it's an incompetence you don't often see. Normally you get the bumbling fool.
Right.
This is a bumbling fool that basically everyone's treating serious, and he's getting he doesn't get stymied at all. Like, he needs a helicopter. He gets it. He wants to go to New York. He goes. But we are getting a little ahead of ourselves.
Yeah. I was telling you before we started recording, I've had interactions with, meaning I've been in the same room as quite a few of the people in this movie, And two of them, David Steinberg, the director, and David Higgins, I encountered at the same event.
Really?
Which was an event.
What men's room was this?
It was at an event in Beverly Hills where they were doing a. David Steinberg was hosting.
Is this Joe Ramone?
I've told this story. It was the time I got to meet Mel Brooks. It was great, but it was a Q&A, and David Steinberg hosted it. And afterwards, I guess if you purchased a certain type, and I was in the front row, you got invited to like this little meet and greet afterwards, little reception. And if I had seen this movie at the time, and I was because David Higgins was in this room, and he was trying to get his picture taken with Mel Brooks, and he just couldn't get because Mel Brooks was surrounded.
Oh, sure.
And so he just settled for a picture of him with Mel Brooks in the background. It was hilarious, him just standing there, and I laughed at that. Like, and we shared a little moment there. If I had seen this movie, and like, it's one of those moments where it was like, at that point, I'm like, oh, that's that guy from Malcolm in the Middle.
Yeah.
Like, he is so funny in this movie.
Well, you cooked up a nice tribute to him, and when this episode comes out, you'll all get to see that.
When we do some of these movies that I feel lack in attention for certain supporting actors, I did it with Lou Albano in Wise Guys. I put a compilation on YouTube, all of his scenes. I did the same thing with David Higgins' part in this. I did a compilation that's ready to go. So after we put this out, I'll put it up the same day, and you guys can check it out.
It's such a standout character.
Yeah.
He elevates the movie. The movie was good. It makes it it's
really fun,
really enjoyable.
This movie, the humor is like it's almost for people that love movies, and I loved it. By the way, I don't think I said that.
I enjoyed it very much as well.
I
you know what it was? It's not so much a belly laugher, but you're amused the whole time.
Yeah.
You got to grin.
There's a couple moments though. Where
sure.
And you kind of see them coming, but even when they do get there, you're like, that's really well done.
It's a strange film in the sense that like it keeps the comedy going. You don't get burned out really. The laughs stay fresh. They don't repeat too much. I'll say this: when Jennifer Tilly comes into the picture, it drags a little, but there's also one of the funniest subplots I've ever seen in a movie when she comes into the picture. But let's jump back a little bit here.
You want to talk about what went on making this movie, or I mean, do you have any notes about that?
I'll say David Steinberg, the director. I didn't realize he's no slouch.
No, he's done primarily TV. A lot of really great TV shows he's directed episodes of.
He guest hosted Carson a lot.
Yeah.
I had no idea about that.
He did.
He basically helped end the Smothers Brothers Comedy Hour, too, which I don't want to get on the whole digression here, but the Smothers Brothers, they were real pricks when it came to, telling corporate suits to go fuck off, which is great. I love the Smothers Brothers for that. But they had Steinberg on a bunch of times, giving these like satirical sermons.
Oh, really?
And the network was like, yeah, he can come on the show, but no more sermons. So the Smothers Brothers go, okay. And they immediately have him do a sermon, and then their show got canceled.
Yeah.
Which is great.
He basically discovered John Candy. I don't know if you knew that.
I did not.
He found him performing locally in Canada and kind of helped elevate him to more parts. But he also directed a movie called Going Berserk, which I think it's like 83. It's John Candy, Eugene Levy, and Joe Flaherty. It's like it was what they were trying to like make a movie based on SCTV people, not based on a sketch within SCTV, but it was like
the performers.
It's an interesting movie. It doesn't quite hold up or work. Obviously, you've probably never heard of it. It was hard to find for a long time, but it's he's done little weird films like that. He's done this. I think he did I'm looking at his filmography now. There was something else I wanted to bring up. Oh, Paternity. He did that movie where the poster,
which is one of the best posters I've ever seen.
He says he wants you to have his baby. It's like Uncle Sam, but Burt Reynolds pointing.
It's a great poster.
You should get that. That would make a great like bathroom art or something.
Yeah, if there's one thing I do buy anymore, or at least I try to, I only own one, but vintage old movie posters I like to buy.
You did tell me you wanted to buy a Shaggy Dog poster because the one where the dog has the Tim Allen eyes.
It's in a sense that's one of the best posters ever made because it's so jarring. You know something's not right there, and it's just Tim Allen's eyes. It's phenomenal. It's real. I don't know if I could have it. I don't know if I could have that looking at me in my apartment at all times.
Yeah, that would unnerve some people. But David Steinberg.
It's like then you can't stop once you start.
David Steinberg, he's done Seinfeld, Friends, Mad About You, Curb Your Enthusiasm. Like,
you familiar with Crazy Joe Gallo?
Yeah,
he was the best man at his wedding.
At
Joe Gallo's wedding. I don't know if that's true. I read it.
All right.
How the fuck did those two meet? Who knows, though?
Yeah, who knows?
Joe Gallo was a fucking odd guy. If you guys don't know, he was a mobster. If you've seen that piece of garbage, The Irishman,
It's not a piece of garbage.
He's
I enjoy
played
The
by
Irishman.
Sebastian Maniscalco.
Yeah, good casting there.
I can do him sometimes.
You want to know another weird best man scenario? I believe John Lennon was Peter Boyle's best man.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Why not?
Yeah.
Peter Boyle popped up on my radar recently. What the fuck was I
He's
watching?
a Philly guy. I didn't know that. Did you ever know that?
But he was... No, I didn't. But he was
Yeah.
in something I watched recently.
Was it Hardcore? He's great in Hardcore.
No, it wasn't. Oh, it was... Oh, you know what I did? I read the book, and then I watched the movie, The Friends of Eddie Coyle.
Oh, don't tell me I have it. The Blu-ray's on its way to me currently.
Yeah, Peter Boyle's good in that.
I'm in a Robert Mitchum kick.
That's what it was. Mitchum's great in that.
Yeah.
The book, you know what's funny? I haven't read a book and watched. Man, we're getting off track.
fine.
Both these movies are all over the place, so we're
Yeah.
going to be kind of all over the place. But
They tie into some of these things. Well, we can talk a little bit
if
more
you've
about.
made it this far listening to our show, then you know this is the style. So
Yeah, we gradually
take the ride.
sink into it.
I haven't read a book and then watched the movie in a while. The book is like better. You know what I mean? The movie's great, but the book, it's like, shit.
I just did that with The Big Sleep.
Oh, you know what? I got to reread that because from what I remember, I think it's The Big Sleep where it doesn't make any sense.
I thought the books. I watched the Bogart movie.
I think it's The Big Sleep because like
It
the
is.
chauffeur.
Yeah.
Like there's that whole thing
If
where
I didn't read
is
the
it
book-
Carver? Is it Raymond Carver or
Chandler.
Hammett?
Chandler.
Oh, it's Raymond Chandler.
Yeah.
I think he admitted he's like, I don't know what the fuck I did there. Like he fucked the story up, but it's very good nonetheless.
Well, we talk about this a lot too. Like I do like a 6 degrees of what movies I'm watching, where it's like I jump to this, I jump to that, and
It's a great way to do it.
The Big Sleep I watched, and then Robert Mitchum also played what's his name, Marlowe in Farewell, My Lovely. I think they made a movie of. He played. So it was like you kind of do these stepping stones where you start to pick up the trail of things. Be like, ooh, I like Robert Mitchum as like a detective, and I saw the Yakuza. I think it's
I wanted to watch
the Yakuza. How do you say that?
Yakuza.
That was interesting. But anyway, well, so real quick about The Wrong Guy is entertainment wise, The Wrong Guy is the production company is Hollywood Pictures, which is a subsidiary at the time of Disney. It was supposed to be much like a Touchstone. They were going to distribute more like horror and indie type movies. They distribute Sixth Sense, Arachnophobia. I think they do Super Mario Brothers. So they're doing like a lot of these weird little movies, and they obviously do The Wrong Guy. But yeah, direct to video in the US comes out in 1997. And the whole genesis of the plot is, I think even Dave Foley said the concept began with him saying it's about a guy on the run from no one, and it's a really funny plot to play with. But he's basically Nelson Hibbert. He's an executive, and the movie begins. You get the sense that everyone hates his character.
I wanted to say this. I don't want to start naming things and whatnot, but it has a bit of the Cabin Boy effect, in the sense that you don't like the main character. He's fucking annoying.
Yeah. It's funny, I actually put down on my notes, I feel like Cabin Boy would have been this movie if they weren't, involved with Tim Burton. This feels like the type of movie that Chris Elliott and Resnick would have made if they had the freedom to.
Agreed.
Because it feels very similar from a character perspective.
It's good comedy writers, quite frankly.
And this movie, obviously, they just don't have that weird creatures and goofy thing to play with. Here, it's just let's do what we want to do.
It's still, however, very goofy.
Yeah. But
and
it
I'm
works.
going to give Steinberg credit too. It's shot well. It's shot comedically well.
Yeah.
I was reading about the start of Kids in the Hall, and it was a stage show. You know what I mean? They did it was a live performance, and when they got the go ahead to start making their show, they realized editing. You can use editing for laughs. You can use camera angles as laughs, lighting as laughs. They had to kind of figure that out, and people you take it for granted in a comedy film. Like what you're seeing, that's the humor. Is that
sure.
And I think they did a pretty good job with that here.
And I again, we're going to talk a little bit about it on Sidetracks, but Brain Candy, same thing. Brain Candy, it's very the jokes, it's very visual.
I was once again, I shouldn't have been pleasantly surprised because I love these guys, but for whatever reason, I have never seen Brain Candy.
It's hard. We were just talking about it. It's hard to find.
Apparently, we're getting a good batting average here with reissues.
Yeah.
If they could reissue fucking Brain Candy, I would be thrilled. But
I had to watch it off YouTube. Someone put it on YouTube, but the quality's not great.
Quality's bad on,
Yeah, and whoever uploaded it I don't know if it got flagged. There's ads in it, so it's it's impossible to watch. So it begins with Dave Foley plays this businessman, Nelson Hibbert. Like you said, everyone kind of hates him. Walks in the office going, oh, today's the big day today. You see where it's going instantly. There's a promotion happening.
Right.
And he thinks he's going to get the promotion. Obviously, he gets skipped over for the promotion, and Ken Daly gets it. And I do love there's a joke right off the bat where he explains that he's mad. The boss is Kenneth Welsh plays the boss, Mr. Nagel.
How far did you get in Twin Peaks? Probably not far enough.
First season.
Kenneth Welsh plays Wyndham Earl. It was either the tail end of the first or the second season. He was like Cooper's mentor, but he's lost his mind.
Okay.
Very divisive character. I'll leave it at that.
Well, yeah,
but it was funny to see him. I was just like, oh fuck, I know that guy. Like,
and there's so many like little threads that are set up in this movie where you're like, oh, I've seen that. This is a movie trope where it's like he's engaged to the boss's daughter, and the guy who gets the promotion is also engaged to the boss's daughter, but his more favorite daughter.
Right.
I thought that was a great little joke. Ken Daly, he gets the promotion. So, again, Nelson threatens him during the meeting with a bunch of people, says he's going to kill him, like gets into really incriminating stuff, which, again, as you're watching this movie, as someone that's seen these type of movies, you're like, oh, I know where this is going. I know where this is going. And eventually, he storms into the office later in the day because he's going to tell him off. And it turns out he's dead and has a knife in his neck. And Nelson reaches in and grabs the knife out, then can't quite get it back in. He's
that was one.
screaming.
That scene was almost making me squirm because I've never seen the idea of putting the knife back in.
Yeah.
You'd think like, hey, just pop it back in. It's like really, it made me squeamish. But it also did a good job. You ever see the Coen's first movie, Blood Simple?
I have.
It's very difficult to clean up blood, and the second it starts to move around, it's everywhere. So he gets covered in blood.
Yeah, and again, I really didn't know I just thought it was going to be your typical man on the run type story.
Sure.
So I'm like, oh, of course he's overreacting. He's screaming. He's getting blood all over himself.
And he runs out of the building. Everyone sees him covered in blood.
Yeah, he gets in the elevator.
Yeah,
he drops the knife.
Drops the knife.
It's really funny stuff, and
we'll probably say this again. We're gonna miss so many good little jokes. There's just too many to remember them all. Quite frankly, it's a total rewatchable movie in that sense.
Yeah. Well, after he leaves the office, Colm Feore plays the killer. That's all we ever find. He's credited as the killer. He steps out from behind the curtain, goes up the air vent, and I love too that there's so much that he does to conceal his tracks.
Yeah.
But as Ryan and I were talking about earlier, we eventually find out that the whole room is being monitored by security cameras. So everyone knows that Nelson's innocent. The cops say it
almost immediately. And I think audibly I went, oh, that's great.
Yeah.
Because immediately they're like, well, it's not him. Like, and they can see the actual guy and everything. And the detective Arlen, he keeps throughout the movie talking about the killer. He's like,
so that's the woman. Well, when he first sees Nelson screaming, he goes, so this is the woman that found the body.
That's another joke they keep repeating is everyone thinks Dave Foley is a screeching woman for some reason. But no, Detective Arlen keeps going, I saw him pull himself up into an air shaft.
He's very impressed by that.
It's the most amazing thing ever.
Well, I learned this from the commentary. Apparently they shot a lot more of the killer concealing his tracks. Like, the joke was supposed to be that he went through all these extensive, and they kind of leave a lot of it in, but there was apparently more.
Yeah, he goes through that whole escape routine.
Yeah, he gets into a different van. He's got, like, masquerading as a plumber.
Right.
Like, really crazy stuff.
And it's great, too, because in his whole escape thing, the Nelson character, Dave Foley, is fleeing the building. The killer's basically doing the same thing in a much more, acrobatic way, and they bump into each other. And the Nelson character hasn't seen he doesn't know the killer exists. Mm-hmm. But the killer has seen Nelson, so he goes, you! And Dave Foley just runs.
Yeah.
And they keep bumping up against. So this is a great part. I tried to write down a little web here. The cops are looking for the killer. Nelson thinks the cops are looking for him. So he's fleeing. The killer thinks Nelson has been sent to, like, almost get in his way or, like, a loose end or something.
Yeah.
So the killer's tracking Nelson. It's
just like so many coincidences and
the
near
FBI
misses.
thinks the cops are tracking the killer, but the killers are tracking. No, the cops are tracking the killer, but they're actually going after Nelson.
It looks like they're going after Nelson,
and they think they are.
Yeah, because they're getting all these reports of this guy who's doing this and that.
But it's him just bumbling.
It's him just running. And there's even that great joke where they cut to the meeting room, and they don't even really realize he's gone.
Right.
They think he stepped out to the bathroom. Right. So they really, for I'm shocked I had never heard this movie because it really is a fun premise of, if you've seen any of these movies, like North by Northwest, any movie where someone's on the run, this movie does it, and just that minor tweak of everyone already knows he's innocent.
Yeah.
And he starts throwing his credit cards away. Like,
dude, it's so funny. He goes to get money and like he's like, oh no, they can track me. And he
Yeah.
just throws it away. It is. It's and he isn't as annoying the whole ride through.
no, it starts to,
He is just kind of an idiot.
yeah. He throws the knife over the bridge. It lands on a police boat.
Dude,
That's
shit
another
like that
great
is
gag.
so funny, man. Like, it immediately lands right on it, and they just pick it up and look up. It's great stuff.
Yeah, I love, like, even when it looks incriminating for him, he's still proven innocent.
Yeah.
Like, every step it goes, it's like, well, it can't be him.
But no one's saying we're not chasing you,
Right.
so he assumes
they are.
It's surprisingly well done.
So at one point, he goes to use his credit cards, then decides to throw them all away. He saves his cash and a picture of himself in a sombrero, and he hides in the dumpster. And the cops, who are played by the bare naked ladies, are just having like a doo-wop sing-off outside the dumpster so he can't leave. It's just another really
great,
silly
yeah.
little
and then,
moment.
Like, he's like annoyed, and then by the end, he's like, he's kind of like
trying to
jamming
get into it.
along with it.
And then he goes into the restaurant, and he's covered in blood, and he has to use the restroom. And we cut to a shot of, it's a guy walking in the bathroom, so you just see what's left after he's cleaned himself. There's blood everywhere. It's
Yeah.
all over the mirror.
Excellent shot.
And so the police, again, Arlen, and he has this, I guess, assistant, Jimmy, played by Richard Chevalou, I believe is his name. And it's great because he's always just, Jimmy, hey, Jimmy. And Jimmy's kind of like the one that's actually like, shouldn't we be doing something here?
Yeah.
A guy covered in blood showed up at La Trattoria. You think it's a lead?
No, our guy's too smart. Pulled himself into an air duct, didn't he? I never would have thought of that. La Trattoria. Is that nice place with the really thick veal chops?
Yeah.
Tell you what, let's check this out. Have the chef make whatever the suspect ate. I want to get into this cat's head. Also, have him throw a couple of those chops on the grill.
And have him throw a couple of those chops on the grill. When I put that compilation up, people will see who haven't seen it, but it's
really, and it's just funny too because he never. I like when characters never have consequences. He's doing the wrong thing
the end of the
every
movie.
step of the way, and there's never.
There's that moment at the end where you think it's gonna, and it's great.
It's great. It's awesome.
So they're on this. They're, like you said, Ryan said earlier, the police are on Nelson's trail because they think he is the killer, even though if they knew it was Nelson, they wouldn't be pursuing
right. They
him.
think they're following the killer,
right?
But they're actually following Nelson because this guy. They're going off tips.
Well, so there's that great moment where he ends up buying a bus ticket, and the killer has stolen a black Jeep and is driving down the highway, and it's night, and he turns and just sees Nelson staring out the window at him, and he's like, "What the hell? This guy's following me!" And cuts to the bus, and it's just him looking at his reflection, like fixing his hair.
So good. That's what I talk about when I talk about the idea of using the camera for humor.
Oh yeah,
you have to do that. You have to think visually if you're going to do this shit. It can't just be all words.
Sketch comedy in regards to like how Saturday Night Live does it, you can't really do that. You can't play around with those elements that much. Whereas something like SCTV, which you have the ability to do cuts. And when you're watching a sketch on Saturday Night Live, the audience can see everything. You can't really do those jokes to that effective sense.
Well, I mean, it's the difference between live performance and a film. It's just, of course, there is that different medium.
Yeah, but like you're saying, there's opportunities to be funny, and I'm glad that the wrong guy uses those opportunities.
Yeah, and they use them well, very well.
Speaking of that, there's another great scene where it must be like 15 seconds long, and it's Arlen and Jimmy walking through a strip club. It's almost like the Goodfellas scene. It's like a long take. They're walking through, they go up the steps into the stripper's dressing room, pull out a picture of the killer and go, "Have you seen this man?" The stripper goes, "No." "Oh, well, it was just a hunch."
Get us a couple tables up front.
From the commentary, I learned like that walk was apparently like 30 more seconds. Like they started in the kitchen.
Oh, really?
Like, apparently, and I kind of wish they kept it like that. Like just done like this real, and they're real brooding about it up the steps. And then he's like, maybe sticking around, we'll do something. Go get us a table down by the stage.
It's great. It's just I don't know. It was very funny.
So Nelson, the bus ends up they kick him off. I think it's called Crow's Nest. That's in the middle of nowhere, but that's all the money he had for the ticket. He wants to go to Mexico, but they kick him out in the middle of nowhere, and he is walking through the woods and starts eating berries, which I thought that's kind of funny. When he picks up that giant toadstool and starts eating it, I can't explain why. It was just so funny to me. I don't know what.
Something just hits sometimes, man.
It's just he looks at it, he hesitates for a minute, then chomps into it, and then we get a shot of him behind a tree throwing up. And I again, the commentary, they were saying like, because it was technically a Disney movie, like they had they filmed, I guess, like him actually throwing up. Like there was weird little things where Disney was like, "Oh, you can't show that."
Really?
The strip club scene, she has pasties on.
Yeah.
Apparently, they shot it without the pasties. Like they were doing like
weird.
Because I guess there might have been like different distribution things in Canada. I don't know how it works out, but they did say that they almost felt like there were certain restrictions that made the movie better because they had to mold into that and tell jokes in that.
Sometimes a little restriction's good. I've seen people have to hold back, and then when they don't have to, they're not as funny almost.
Yeah.
It's a little, it sometimes, not always, but.
Well, he ends up finding the Jeep that the killer ditched because it was reported stolen. So now he's driving the Jeep that they think the killer is driving. It's a great he's very close to being the killer, and they end up at the same motel. He's in the room next door to the killer,
where you get a good little, very Kids in the Hall-esque bit with Dave Foley and Kevin McDonald is the hotel manager, and they both come to a consensus on basically what Nelson's fake name will be. It goes on too long, but whatever. You get a little Kevin McDonald in there.
I thought that this movie would be much more of that. And it's a fun scene, but I'm glad there's more to it than that Kids in the Hall type of.
Yeah. So they both, him and the killer, end up at the same motel. Basically, I think they're like next door to each other.
They're in the room next door to each other, and Nelson gets out of the shower and discovers the newspaper where it's reported that the killer is driving the black Jeep. Of course, looks out the window. Police are all coming, and there's a great shot where he looks out the window and the killer looks out the window. So they both
are like, fuck.
Yeah, here come the cops. And he does this great. He comes out of the hotel room and he's drying his hair, covering his face, and he's doing this voice like, "Oh, pardon me, I'm just washing my hair." And they're all like, "What the fuck is that guy doing?" And they're like, or that woman, I think they even say. He's like,
"Hey, what's going on down there? I was just taking a shower when I heard all the sirens, and I was wondering what all the commotion was."
Is that him?
Can't be. Person we're looking for is 6 feet tall, 180 pounds. That woman's nowhere near that size.
I think it's a man.
Really?
He does this whole act of like, "Pardon me, just coming through, washing my hair." And in the meantime, the killer actually tries to escape, but does like a backflip off
an insane action scene where he's shooting at the cops. And honestly, it's funny. He gets into a cop car and flees. He did one of the coolest things. By the way, Colm Feore, I brought this up a few episodes ago. Great as the main villain in Chronicles of Riddick.
Oh, that's where he's from, right?
Yeah. But he does this move when he gets in the car. Like the police door's open, right? And he kicks it, and it goes out and bounces back in. I'm like, how have I never seen that in a movie before?
That's pretty cool.
It was so cool. It was so smooth and fluid. But,
and then Nelson, there's like, they get so many gags out of this train, but there's a freight train, and he escapes on that. But first, he jumps through it.
That was such a good gag.
Yeah.
He goes, like, it's the classic, I'm going to jump into a boxcar, and he just goes out the other door.
Yeah. And then does the whole run and catch it thing, and it stops. You know what? There's part of this movie that reminds me of High Anxiety, which I don't think... Have you ever seen that?
No.
But very similar of like that. Even the opening titles of this I didn't mention. They're very Hitchcockian with like that.
Absolutely.
And this, I love that it plays, like you said, with visual jokes, the way that Hitchcock would play with visual foretelling and things like
Suspense,
that.
yeah, for sure.
So it's great. He ends up on this train where there's tainted canned ham is what they're for some reason carrying, and Arlen and Jimmy show up at the motel. Jimmy comes up and goes, "Well, sir, that was the FBI. They said since you've been on the case so long, they're willing to give you unlimited resources." And he's like, "Unlimited resources? can we get a helicopter into Cincinnati? He's like, yeah, why? Well, I got a sister there. I haven't seen her in 8 months. So he just starts using all these resources to do it. And the moment we come back to him, he's away from the story for a little bit, but when we come back to him,
long.
it's so... But that reveal of where he's at
That's great.
is so
it is.
funny. So yeah, he's bungling the case because he's not even on the killer's trail. Nelson ends up eating this expired ham.
And it gets him in the hospital. He gets his
Him in
stomach
the
pumped,
hospital, which might be the best fake name joke I've ever seen in a movie. When of the scene where the person's looking around the room to get names, he's looking around.
Oh yeah.
And at first one is Jones, and he's like, because the doctor's like, I'm going to need to know your name. He's like, and there's a product on the shelf and it says Jones. He goes Jones, and then he looks up, and there's two right next to each other. One says Simpson, and the other says Enema Bag. So he just goes Enema Bag Jones, and she goes, well, that's not your name. And then he starts looking around again and sees her name tag and goes, I'm Helen Harris. Dr. Helen Harris. Really funny.
We're not doing it justice.
No,
like,
it's
I really recommend watching this movie.
And again, you can look at that and probably see where it's going, but his delivery and the way he sells it is so funny.
All these guys were good. Obviously, this is not a Kids in the Hall movie, but there's a reason Dave Foley kind of got the bump up to, they were trying to make him a movie star. And he is really... He's a fun performer. He can take something kind of minor and elevate it. I always thought Mark McKinney was always my favorite, but he's such a good character actor.
That's why I couldn't believe this movie went straight to video in the U.S. because it's like it supposedly takes. I know it's filmed in Canada. It takes place in the U.S.
Right.
It's got a lot of U.S. cast members. It's just what happened? Why did it not?
Who knows?
It's weird.
When we get into Brain Candy, they pissed a lot of people off studio wise. I feel like they never really recovered from that totally.
Yeah, I mean, in '97 there might not have been a market for a movie starring Dave Foley, and even like a lot of supporting cast like Joe Flaherty, who I love, and
this movie could have came out. I don't know. You know what it was? That era. That's when you started to see a lot of direct to DVD. Like studios were dumping a lot of shit. Who knows?
They saw Cabin Boy come out, and they're like, "Ooh, we have to avoid that."
Who knows? Maybe
I think Cabin Boy is Touchstone.
Yeah, but that was like 4 or 5 years before, wasn't it?
No, it's like 95, I think, Cabin Boy is. Yeah.
We should know this, but...
I think
you're right.
I think there was a period of time in the 90s, like when they were giving vehicles to comedians and comedy stars, that some of them just didn't really... Carrot Top had a few movies, and Sinbad was doing some movies. They were just like really giving movies to personalities.
Yeah, and then, some of those personalities are probably easier to work with than others.
Of course.
Especially these guys, they're protective of their material. Whereas,
yeah,
nothing against Sinbad, but I think he's going to read the lines.
Oh, yeah.
He's not going to bitch.
Yeah, he's not writing his own scripts. He's not
I
really...
like that. No problem with Sinbad.
Yeah, but it's just, I think the 90s, we had this habit of, let's give this person a movie and not really understand him. We
for sure.
about
well, they were
a lot
doing
of
that with
stuff.
sitcoms, too. Everyone was getting one.
So Nelson ends up escaping the hospital, where the killer has also shown up to try to take out Nelson.
Oh, yeah, and he's dressed as the doctor.
And he's dressed as the doctor, where one of the cops has a heart attack, and they force him into the room. And
which is actually really funny.
It is a funny...
He just ends up killing the guy.
He kills the guy, and then,
he doesn't save him.
He just wants to get out of there. Yeah. And it cuts to a shot of him between two cops in a waiting room, and they go, well, doctor, you did everything that you could. And he's just like, guys, I think I need to go take a walk, get my mildness. And he just gets up and runs away. They're like, man, it's really hitting the doc hard.
There's a good scene right before that, too, because the killer and Nelson are kind of converging on each other as the cops come in, and Nelson's kind of fighting with a guy with a neck brace, and that's a little cameo by David Steinberg, the director.
That's fun.
Yeah.
And then Nelson hitches a ride with Enrico Colantoni.
I think you
Is
got
that
it.
How you would say that? All right. I'm an Italian guy. I should know how to...
His name's always been a little weird to me, but Colantoni, whatever.
Who, for those of you who don't know, I always know him as a kid for Galaxy Quest.
Sure.
He's like the main alien.
Funny enough, I knew him from... Do you ever watch Just Shoot Me?
Oh, yeah. It's been a long time. I used to love that show.
It was not a bad show.
That was like an after-school TBS show.
Yeah.
On.
He was like it took place like a fashion magazine.
Yeah.
He was the photographer. He was always funny. He's a good actor.
He just plays like this insane, creepy guy who...
Real JFK conspiracy nut,
He has
right?
a theory that JFK's head just did that.
Is that what it, I couldn't remember
had
what
nothing
it was.
to do with the bullets. Yeah, his head just did that.
There were no gunmen at all. Kennedy's head just did that. Really? I call it the no bullet theory.
Yeah, well, he ends up getting out of the car, and that's where he goes to the water machine at the gas station. So he gets out of the creepy guy's car and sticks his head under this water machine and like hits and just water.
Which, dude, it looked like hurt his
neck. It looked like
neck.
he nearly like waterboarded himself. Like the way. By the way, he I think broke his ankle in this movie when he dives into the dumpster. Another gem I learned from the commentary, and he had to do that. But this is where he ends up getting a ride with Lynn, who's played by Jennifer Tilly, which I always get Jennifer Tilly and Joey Lauren.
Oh, Joey Lauren Adams?
Adams confused.
Well, they both have the baby voice and the kind of slit eyes.
They
Best way
do
to put
look
it.
alike, and they have that similar voice.
It's the eyes. They have those half-lidded eyes and the baby voice.
Who's the one in Big Daddy?
Joey Lauren Adams.
Okay. So Jennifer Tilly then is, what's her name, from the Chucky movies. She's right.
Bride of Chucky?
Yeah,
I guess.
yeah. I think she's Tiffany, I think her name is. Okay.
In this?
No, in this she's Lynn.
Oh, yeah.
But, yeah, she's just one of those actresses I always get mixed up because that voice is so similar. And
they have a similar face, too,
Yeah.
for sure. Now, blonde and brunette, a little different, but
I guess.
you can dye your hair.
But, yeah, she's a narcoleptic who picks up Nelson in a pickup truck, and he can't figure out why this girl is single. Like, why wouldn't a guy be interested in you? And then she falls asleep behind the wheel, nearly kills them. And there's a great line where she's like, look, let me take you back to my house. And he's like, well, can I drive at least? And she's like, no, you don't know the way.
Yeah.
He's like, all right, I guess.
Where were they at this point? Like, in the country?
Again, it starts off in Cleveland. They're going towards Mexico.
Yeah,
so
I mean, it
it's
don't
like,
really matter. It's
Yeah.
just kind of funny because this town I found so fucking funny. The premise of this.
townspeople. Oh, like it's the farmers trying to.
So in every movie of a small town, the bank is the villain against the farmers. He's like, I got the deed to your farm. You better pay up.
Right.
In this, it's the complete opposite. Farmer Brown owns the paper. He like runs the town. The poor banker is just trying. Dude, and it's Joe Flaherty's the banker. He plays Jennifer Tilly's father. It's so funny, the idea. That made me laugh so hard.
It's like
we're just struggling. We're just a neighborhood bank just struggling
It
to get
takes something we've all seen and does a little twist that just makes it so funny.
In the Farmer Brown character, he's all menacing and like
Farmer Brown, who's played by Alan Scarf, who he's an English actor. He plays it so menacing, so well. And
like real quiet, like,
yeah.
well, if you don't get that note, we're gonna have to take your bank.
It's such a funny.
So fucking hilarious.
He owns the paper and like is printing all this anti shit about the bank.
Anti-bank stuff, and like all the farmers. Dude, it's just and Joe Flaherty. You can't go wrong there.
Yeah, and so like their family's going poor. Joe Flaherty, his character's name is Frank, and he's Lynn's father. And I mentioned SCTV earlier. I've always loved SCTV. I think Joe Flaherty is just a very underutilized performer. I think he hasn't, there's a couple things he pops up in. Happy Gilmore, I know he's got that little part in.
I mean, that's like there was something about Adam Sandler movies, man. It was a better time. We were all stupider, and we were better for it. But you can do it. I heard that for a decade.
We were more forgiving.
Jackass! But Joe Flaherty and Happy Gilmore.
Jackass,
dude.
Yeah.
Everyone was doing that for 15 years. It was like, yeah, baby.
Yeah, and he's like,
man, we used to really have we used to actually have cinema that we all enjoyed together. That doesn't happen anymore.
Do you remember like Austin Powers quotes? That was like
I just said, yeah, baby. Yeah, I didn't do it in the voice, but
that's probably what did it.
And it was just, everyone was done with it.
I was telling someone who had never seen the Austin Powers movies, trying to describe how big they were, and I remember.
Well, the first one wasn't.
Well, I know, but like
talk about a cult hit. That was probably one of the last cult hits.
When like 2 came out and they had tapped into it by then. Like I remember being at some store where they had like a bag of candy and it just had "shh" with your name on it or something like that. Like the quotes were on every piece of merchandise, everything imaginable.
It was unavoidable. At a certain point, it really was unavoidable.
I remember like. One of my favorite stories, we always talk about Suncoast. Suncoast was just decked with Austin Powers junk, like action figures, blow-ups, like wigs and costumes. That was crazy.
I collected keychains when I was a kid, and it was Austin's head, and it had
I'm sure it talked.
4 buttons underneath with all his catchphrases, and I was like my prized keychain for a while. I fucking loved it.
One of those cheap speakers where it was just like,
yeah, baby.
Wasn't even him.
Yeah,
It was
right.
Some guy in a sound booth. But yeah, this Joe Flaherty, he just is one of those actors that in everything, and I've never seen that. I know he's in the show Freaks and Geeks. I've never watched Freaks and Geeks, but apparently he's like the dad on that show and is great.
I'm sure.
And yeah, I think he's from Pittsburgh. I'm pretty sure he's from Pittsburgh, but he's just even like, isn't it Back to the Future 2? Is that where he comes in with the note at the end and hands it, where it's like Doc summoning Marty to the Old West? That is him. It's in part 2.
Can't remember.
Yeah, but just he has these little parts.
He's in 1941. Remember, he's the club guy.
And it's so fun to see him in this because there's something a little bit more substantial. It's like,
and he's funny.
Like you're saying, the down on his luck businessman who somehow is a banker in this. And
Dude, it's just so preposterous, and they don't back off it at all. I think that's one thing with this movie. The absurdities in this film, they don't back off. They just keep going as if it's normal, and it really works. The escalation really works in this.
So they decide to take Nelson into their home. First as a maintenance man, but he doesn't. He's like using Elmer's glue to fix the fence.
Great gag with the fence, and like Joe Flaherty comes home and he does. He opens the gate and all the things fall down like dominoes. And there's a great shot later when they're having dinner. It's like an exterior shot of the house at night, and it's quiet, and just the one plank falls down. It's great.
It's great.
Very simple shit, but it works.
But then Nelson's like, I've got experience working in finance. If you need help. If you need help in the bank. And he's like, oh, I know nothing about you. I don't know where you've come from or can't speak for your experience, but you seem like a good kid. So he gives him a job as a teller, he finds out. And it comes with a teller outfit.
Like old-timey. Yeah, the visor and the suspenders.
But there is a scene before his first big day of work that I thought was so funny. He wakes up in the middle of the night, and Lynn is in his doorway. And he sits up and sees her, and she's in like a see-through nightgown.
Negligee, yeah, or whatever.
And he just looks at her and goes, Frank? And she goes, no, it's me, Lynn. He goes, oh, sorry, hi, Lynn. And he turns on this bedroom light, and it blows out her. And then he's like, oh, this light's a little too bright. I'm going to turn it off. And he's like, can you turn yourself like a little bit clockwise? Why? Well, no reason. It's such a funny little,
and,
joke.
Jennifer Tilly's well endowed, so.
Yeah. And, I guess they also, for dinner, have more canned ham and, like, saltine crackers.
Yeah, because that's what's so funny. The bankers are poor.
They're poor. They can't afford ice.
So funny, man. It's just such a dumb concept, and they just commit to it, and it works so beautifully.
So as we said earlier, Arlen and Jimmy have been out of the story for quite some time up to this point, but we come back to them, and it's such a funny reveal. It cuts to Arlen having a glass of wine at this fancy restaurant. He's in like a tuxedo, and he just goes, well, Jimmy, apparently the killer hasn't been to this French restaurant either. And then Jimmy just goes, well, sir, we have no reason to believe he's in New York City. And then he wants Jimmy to go get tickets to the Moby Dick musical.
Better yet, make it 4 tickets. And call one of those escort places. Get us some dates. We don't want to look too conspicuous. Mm-hmm. Know what, Jimmy? See if they have a blonde Asian girl.
And then later we come back to them it
cuts to him at Moby Dick the musical with the blonde Asian.
Who could not look less interested to be at this musical. It's just like, it's the point where, so Brown spots Nelson, the farmer Brown spots Nelson on TV and has seen him at the bank. So he calls in to the police to say, hey, I see your killer. He's in our town. And that's where we cut to them at Moby Dick the musical. And Jimmy runs up and goes, sir, we just got a tip that the killer could be here. And he's like, not now, Jimmy. These people are trying to make a living up on stage. It's such a funny. It's just.
And it's one of those things, too, where it's like, I wanted more of this character. But, you might have a delicious cake in front of you, but if you eat the whole thing, you'll be sick. So they did a good job of. I honestly, they could have used a little more.
Well,
but too much, and it's not as it gets old because, dude, every scene he's in is good.
Well, that's
They're
what I was
all
going to say.
funny.
And when we did Wise Guys, I said the same thing about Lou Albano. I said every line he says is quotable. Same thing with David Letterman and Cabin Boy. There's these little parts where it's like, and after I watched this film, I said, all right, there has to be a best of David Higgins in this movie on YouTube. It's not, so I was like, well, I'm doing it because it's so.
We gotta see if he has a Twitter, tag him or something.
I mean, He's so funny in this.
He should know that it's appreciated.
He's great.
It's one of the most unsung comedy performances I've ever seen in a film. I can't believe it's not more.
And much like I did with Lou Albano, I texted you before the night we were going to watch it, after I'd finished, and said, I'm not going to tell you who, but I've already cut together a best of compilation of one character in this movie, and you probably knew.
Well, the next day after I texted him, I was like, the cop?
Yeah.
And you're like, yeah, of course. It was evident. Like, and it's something that, if anything, watch this movie for that. It should be appreciated. Like, people should be telling him, this was fucking great. You had one of a great comedy character.
And I was looking at the back of the box, because I didn't realize he was in it. I mean, up until this movie, I didn't recognize him by name.
I didn't either. I was thinking it was fucking, who's the other? David Ogden Steers or...
Michael Clark Duncan.
Michael Clark Duncan. I get those guys confused.
Is that how you thought it was going to be?
Well, it's the three name. The David three name. I was like, wait, who is this?
He's credited as David Higgins in this, and everything else, like IMDb, Wikipedia, he's David Anthony Higgins. So I maybe that threw me off. Maybe that's why I didn't realize who it was. And the back of the box, which again has been put out recently by Kino, it in the parentheses for what he's known for, it says Mike and Molly. And I'm like...
Was he in that?
I guess, but like that's not where if it would, like, me, it was always Malcolm in the Middle. That was where...
The only place I know him from.
He shined in that show.
Oh, he's great.
So we're not doing it justice, but you guys will get to see this compilation I put out because it's phenomenal. But the townspeople end up storming the bank now because they're angry that the killer is working there. Mm-hmm. And at the same time, isn't it where like Lynn brings him lunch and SpaghettiOs?
Yeah.
And she like faints in the SpaghettiOs. It's just like little touches like that. We talked about in Nothing But Trouble, the ants in the log or the Hawaiian Punch. Like when you choose those weird food items,
something about food. Weird food is very
SpaghettiOs,
comedic.
Which might be the grossest. What do you think is it worse, Chef Boyardee or SpaghettiOs?
Something about Chef Boyardee I could never go near. I don't know. One, I don't eat raviolis. I feel like it just disgusted me, and I don't like his face. But SpaghettiOs, I remember I used to eat as a kid constantly. I love them. And one day I ate them and I threw up and I never ate them again. I did that with Gushers too. Remember that shitty candy?
Fruit Gushers.
It's still around.
Yeah, the commercial where their heads would turn into big pieces of fruit.
Yes, wow. 90s babies, or 90s kids.
But yeah, SpaghettiOs are gross. And
they're gross.
Yeah.
I have not had them since I was 8, I think.
And to see them, appear in this context, like it's the one food they can afford, and she's bringing it to him for lunch.
I can't get over the poor bankers. It's so fucking funny to me.
Well, not only that, it's like it comes up again where like the farmer's taking over a shopping mall to like make corn.
Yeah. It's the reverse. Instead of plowing over the farms to put up a shopping mall, they're tearing down malls to put up crop.
Yeah.
Like it's fucking hilarious. And then like the whole Farmer Brown's paper is spreading rumors that the bank's out of money. Like it's so good.
There's another great gag too where the actual killer, he's at this gas station looking for Nelson, and a cop car, sirens blaring, pulls up in the gas station, and he takes off for the hills. And the cop pulls up and goes to the mechanic. Man, the siren's going again. Yeah. It's such a simple but great joke.
Yeah.
So he ends up in the town, the killer. And the same time, the
Colm
townspeople...
Feore is really good in this role,
He's
too.
perfect.
He's funny without being funny.
Yeah.
I think that's one thing. If you ever watch a classic Kids in the Hall bit, probably one of their most famous is Chicken Lady. It's the first Chicken Lady bit. Dave Foley, and he was noticed for this, and I think he got the job on news radio because of this specific skit, is that he plays such a good straight man. And a lot of people forget, like, you can get laughs as the straight man. It's your reaction to this absurdity happening in front of you. Dave Foley is a very good straight man in that sense. But Colm Feore is the killer. He doesn't get to say jokes or anything, but all his reactions to the absurdity around him are very funny.
Yeah.
He's funny in this role.
Yeah, but the straight man, it takes a restrained energy to pull that off. And not only that, like, know to step away and give the joke and the payoff to someone else. And like you're saying, Dave Foley in other instances, in this movie, he's being more...
I wouldn't even say he's the straight man necessarily.
No, that's what I mean. He's a little bit more silly in this, but it's there are like the Jimmy character in this who like
he's kind of a straight man.
He sets up.
I like playing the straight man. Do you?
I do. I mean,
I love it.
I naturally fall into it because my personality just works. But like when I've done,
I don't know. I've seen you not be the straight man. I actually think you're quite good.
Well, thank you.
But I love it. It's so much fun because it's that to what we were saying earlier. when restrictions are put on you and you have to be a little more creative, the straight man doesn't get, he has to be a little more creative. You know what I mean? He doesn't get to act broad and, "Whoa, I'm crazy, I'm Will Ferrell."
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's like you just have to kind of be restrained and guide the scene and guide the comedy. And obviously Dave Foley is great at it. But like you're saying, in this movie, Colm Feore is great at being just that typical movie killer in this world.
It works well.
Yeah. So he shows up at the bank and he's wearing like military fatigues. And
because he is trying to kill Dave Foley. He thinks that the guy who hired him to kill,
who is Ken Daly, who got the promotion at work,
he thinks he's kind of double crossing him.
Yeah, this movie is really good, and you can't really talk through it, but it sets up everything pretty well.
It does,
and there's those scenes where you find out what's going on behind the scenes. It's a great. Everything is like connected, like you're saying. There's a web almost, and it gets brought together pretty great.
It's a really funny web because it's so dumb. It's so needlessly convoluted, but it still makes. There's a logic to it.
Yeah, so the killer tries to kill Nelson at this point, and he escapes the bank. Eventually, he's able to get on the barbershop quartet convention bus, which is another great joke.
Because he's dressed, he looks like he's dressed for it.
So he gets on that bus, and then behind that bus pulls up the emotionally unstable veterans retreat, and that's where the killer gets on that bus.
He's dressed in the... It's so dumb, so funny.
Again, though, that's like a Family Guy joke. Like, there's a lot of jokes in this movie where it's like...
Look, everyone takes from everyone.
I'm not saying Family Guy sucks because of it, but I'm saying this movie was
stylistically.
Stylistically,
that's like that bus gag. That's a Simpsons gag. So
all right, well, maybe I'm.
No, I get what you're saying. Totally. Yeah, I absolutely understand what you're saying.
That's probably it probably is a better way to say it. The Simpsons gag, but
I'll tell you what. You know, it's like I said, it's a Simpsons gag, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a cartoon. It's very difficult to be cartoonish in live action and still have it work. This movie gets right up to that line. It's perfect.
Yeah.
It's cartoonish, but not too unrealistic.
No, when we first meet Dave Foley's character and he's in the hallway at work going like, "Hey, how's it going?" Everyone hates him. Like, I was like, "Oh, is this going to be the whole..." But believe it or not, it works.
Yeah. I was worried too. I was just like, "Oh man, I don't want to deal with one of these." Like, me and you have had this conversation before, where it's like, I cannot stand the current terminology. I think is like cuck. That's how you would refer to the. I hate spineless, like man, like like this movie takes it even further and makes it work. Like everyone thinks he's a screeching woman. Like, like it's funny. Like,
well, see, I was thinking about. Did you ever read Save the Cat?
No, because I get it.
I'm not. I'm not saying read Save the Cat.
No. Quite frankly, he's kind of right.
Well, I think that there's two sides to it, and I think that not the whole, but a big theme of Save the Cat is making your character redeemable in the beginning, having that moment where in Aliens, where she saves the cat, where Ripley saves the cat.
Sure.
But the writer, and I'm blanking on his name right now, but he didn't really write that many movies. He wrote Stop or My Mom Will Shoot. I know that.
No.
But
it's like Robert McKee. What did he write? He had a screenwriting book that everyone.
A few of them. And I've always said to you, what I consider to be the best is Robert Ben Garant and Thomas Lennon's book, because the whole book is just, here's how to market a screenplay and write a screenplay you can sell.
It's sensible advice.
And those are guys that have done that type of work. And the book is full of examples, but...
It's funny. I remember years ago, I was kind of flirting with an idea of writing a screenplay called Kill the Cat, where you don't break the rules of that, but you make everyone just like I was going to do a comedy, but just totally irredeemable pieces of shit, like Kill the Cat.
Well,
like, they don't save the cat.
A lot of people, I've seen that come out now that are saying like Save the Cat's wrong. Like there are certain people that have, they're like,
they're only saying it because it became so formulaic,
right?
And every movie was doing that.
And this movie proves that you don't need to have a redeemable character at the front. Like, it was refreshing that we never meet the fiance.
That was a great touch.
And
he's always leaving voicemails.
Yeah,
and I think both times it just gets cut off.
It's like you expect there to be those scenes, and there's not, and you don't really miss them. It's not like this movie needs it. There's other things that make up for it.
Comedies don't need this shit.
Right. And that's what I'm saying. You just need there to be jokes. And
what did you say? I feel like it was like a Tarantino thing we were talking about a little while ago, where like Bill Murray would learn his lesson at the end, but Chevy Chase wouldn't.
Yeah, what he said in that Rogan interview. Yeah, you don't need the character to always like
not in a comedy.
No, and Yeah, I don't even know if he really learns much in this movie. He certainly
he gets the girl, and
he gets
like,
the girl, yeah,
is cleared,
and I guess he ends up living in this small town.
He almost saves the day, like, because the whole thing. Who is the character? Ken Daly.
Yeah, Ken Daly is the one who's pulling the strings, who got the promotion over Nelson,
right, and
hired the killer. The climax of the movie happens at something called Tiny's America, which I guess is it like a carnival / miniature golf course.
That was very funny, though.
There's also that great moment where we don't find out how, but the police have now gotten this high-tech van that they're traveling in.
He had full resources. Yeah.
And he's sitting there, and Jimmy gets off the phone because eventually these two buses we talked about end up at the same gas station, and the killer hijacks Lynn and Nelson, and they're in this catering van, which they steal on their way to Tiny's America, where he is going to meet Ken Daly. And so they get a report of this. This happened at the gas station. So Jimmy goes and finds Arlen in this van where he's getting his manicure done. And he says, well, we just got a report that they're heading, south this way. And the manicurist goes, maybe they're heading to Mexico. And he turns and goes, see, Jimmy, you said a manicurist had no useful role in a police investigation. So they all end up at this place called Tiny's America. Naturally, Lynn falls asleep at the wheel. The killer's made her drive, crashes. Killer wasn't wearing a seatbelt, at which point Nelson lectures him on, like, those of us who wear our seatbelts are fine. And the killer ends up shooting Ken for double-crossing him, which, again, I don't know quite how it works, but it's...
Well, I think he thought he was double-crossing him.
Thought he was double-crossing him.
But he kind of was. It's irrelevant. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, it's... They end up on the Statue of Liberty head, which... The way it's shot, you think it's like high up, but it's not. It's a miniature golf course.
6 feet up, yeah.
And how great is that scene with them with the megaphone where he's talking to the killer and Nelson, the killer's making all these demands of the police.
All right, here's my idea. Safe passage across the border. $1 million in cash.
Helicopter.
And a helicopter. Wait, why?
I've always wanted to ride in a helicopter.
Your helicopter is on the way.
I don't want a helicopter.
It's on its way.
Cancel it!
We can't cancel it.
It's just, they're going back and forth. At one point, Arlen forgets the megaphone's on and says, get our snipers into position. There's so many great little moments like that. Ends up falling off the Statue of Liberty head, which is only like 7 foot off the air. And he just goes like something like, I fell on my keys. Like,
yeah, he falls on his keys.
Yeah.
that sucks.
Yeah. So they save the day. Arlen is praised as being the officer that saved the day. And there's like 2 higher ups are there. And they're like, we just have a question about your expenses. We see you're in New York City. And there's a pause. Like, he looks real worried.
No.
Yeah. And the one guy goes, we're going to be there next week. Could you suggest a show to us?
And he wins.
Yeah.
He wins.
He's like, Moby Dick the musical. And yeah, it wraps up. It's... For me, it flew by. It didn't like you're saying there could have been longer stuff with Arlen. There could have been some more stuff. But it's 92 minutes. Like, it moves fast.
Mm-hmm. It's funny the whole way through.
It really is a movie that I am shocked I had never seen. And I just don't think it's gotten that much exposure here in the States.
No, and I'm glad we're giving it a little more. Man, I love My Kids in the Hall. And this one, Dave Foley knocked it out of the park. Really good stuff.
Yeah, I mean, everyone involved. Dave Foley, David Anthony Higgins, David Steinberg. Obviously, the writer, Jay Kogan, is also the writer. Like, everyone, you can tell they just must have had a lot of fun working on this.
Which I doubt they did, actually. At least Dave Foley didn't.
Well,
we'll get into that in our Patreon
we're gonna
episode.
Talk a little bit about that. But yeah, I would definitely recommend it. Like I said, Kino Lorber, who, by the way, they're becoming my favorite Blu-ray distributor at this point.
Yeah.
Because unlike Shout Factory, unlike Criterion, who are both, I love them, Kino is doing like these weird little movies that would have no shot at getting a Blu-ray release. And sometimes they get a special feature, other times they're pretty bare. But the fact that they're just willing to spend money to put out some of these movies, like, they're the ones that did the Cabin Boy Blu-ray that had that great commentary. Like, they're at least doing some good with this stuff, and they're doing the
if
movies.
Joe supports them, I support them, and I think you all should support them as well.
Yeah, so check out The Wrong Guy on Kino Lorber. They put out the great DVD. If you support us on Patreon, we've been doing some polls for future episodes. We put out one last week, which was I went through and did some of our most frequently requested episodes via email and put them in a poll, and it was neck and neck for Last Action Hero and Used Cars. Like people get Last Action Hero comes up a lot, but Used Cars, as people have been since we started the show. People have
from
been,
the jump.
Yeah.
Well, that won,
and that won.
Because
So
I had voted for Envy, and I saw there was a deadlock, so I was the tiebreaker.
So Ryan has if you support us on Patreon, I'm the Patreon account, and then Ryan has his own.
Yeah, I'll just comment on there.
Yeah,
So feel free to chat with us. I like chatting on Patreon.
We are
It's
both
good.
there. We always take your questions.
By the way, thank you to the Patreons, because I'll tell you what.
Patrons,
yeah, you're right. I have to drive an hour to get to Joe's place.
We appreciate that support.
Yeah, you're making it possible, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah, we've done up to this point when we've done a lot of movies we wanted to do for this show, so now we're really starting to get to these other little movies that are either suggested or come up randomly. And we dug through the email, and there was some good suggestions in there, like Envy.
We'll get back to it at some point, because I remember that movie got fucking pilloried when it came out. And I was like, I'll watch it. And I was like, I like this.
Do you remember what it's about? It's about like a spray that absorbs dog shit.
It makes it,
and it makes money, right? And then everyone starts to wonder where the dog shit's going.
Yeah, I thought it was a good flick. I remember really enjoying it. It was mean. I remember it being a mean movie, and I liked that.
Yeah, so we'll come back to that.
You can still send us suggestions. It's almostcultclassics.com.
Yep, there's a form there. You can send them. They come right to our email, so we're always checking that. And
I had mentioned this in the comments on the Patreon, but we still on Patreon we like that little segment we do, movie theater memories. Feel free to submit movie theater memories in that same movie suggestion place, because we'll read them.
Yeah. And any notes you have for us, that's the place to send them.
You can comment on Patreon if you're a member. You can send us emails at almostcultclass.com. Hit us on Twitter.
So yeah, we're going to be doing Used Cars next on the show. That's Zemeckis' second movie. Maybe we'll talk about that one. I think it's called I Want to Hold Your Hand. It's like
we'll get into them. We'll
Beatles-ish
get into the whole
movie.
It'll be good.
And then we're going to watch Welcome to Marwin, and
Maybe we should for Patreon. You know what? I'm going to let me think about that.
Ooh.
I think we should, because I just won't. I bet you it's not as. I bet you I like it more than I
think it's schmaltz. I think it's probably terrible.
I hate maudlin shit.
Well, not only that, the documentary is phenomenal, and the fact that
that guy was a fucking asshole.
Regardless, the story was told in a much better way without motion capture action figures coming to life. Hey, who knows? We could enjoy it. I actually like some of his motion capture stuff. I like his Christmas Carol. I like Beowulf. He also did Death Becomes Her, which I love, which isn't motion capture.
I remember loving that movie.
So we'll talk about him a little bit. We're not going to do a deep dive because Used Cars is a second film, but
maybe Marwin for Patreon. We'll see. We'll let people know.
Will this be our first actual Kurt Russell movie? We've talked about Kurt, I feel like, so much, but this will probably be our first Kurt Russell movie. Which
you're right.
Any chance?
And you know what? I always like comedy Kurt over action Kurt. I like Kurt, period, but.
I like when it's a blend.
Yeah.
But
you know what's funny? Used Cars, I've seen the first half hour, I think, and for whatever reason, I had to turn it off. I forget why, but I was really enjoying it. He's really funny.
There was some innuendo, and your parents were in the room, and they said, Ryan, go brush your teeth.
Brush your teeth.
And I think, isn't Jack Warden in it?
Yes.
Yeah, the great Jack Warden. And I always used to get Used Cars confused with that movie with Richard Pryor and George Carlin. What is that movie called? It's Car Wash.
Is it Car Wash?
Car Wash.
I almost, it's funny. I almost said, because I think it's the same. I think it's Schumacher. I almost said DC Taxi, which it's not that. It is Car Wash. You're right.
I think that's DC Cab or Taxi Cab.
I don't know.
Either.
I think Mr. T's in it though.
Yeah, he's definitely in it.
All right.
But yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
So thank you for those suggestions. Keep them coming. We're gonna get to more of them as we continue. But yeah, Used Cars next, and then if you support us on Patreon, we're gonna keep talking a little bit about Brain Candy, the Kids in the Hall movie. That
like I said, I almost thought we should have reversed these and done Brain Candy for our free show.
Consider supporting us there, and you can hear our discussion on that.
And at the very least, I'm sorry, I'm always cutting you off. Check out Wrong Guy. Support that. Go check that out too.
Yeah, for sure. I think the DVD was like $10, so you can't go wrong. But Yeah, we're going to keep the mics rolling and talk a little bit more about Dave Foley, Kids in the Hall, and Brain Candy. We're looking forward to talking about that and talking about some more Kids in the Hall stuff. So thank you for checking out this episode. And to those of you support us on Patreon, we'll see you over there. If not, maybe you'll consider supporting us for next time. But this was fun. I'm glad we got to check out The Wrong Guy. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening.